everyone, it's Seiji and I'm back, finally, here to give you a general reading update. I know there are a lot of you that are interested in what I'm currently reading and what I plan to read, but I don't do TBR videos, at least not frequently, just because I suck at keeping to a TBR. I always end up feeling disappointed because I just, for the life of me, cannot adhere to them. So I felt that doing sort of a general reading update video would be me kind of like meeting you all in the middle or at the middle. Also, I now have a PO box. A lot of people have been asking me about this. So if you're interested, I have left like the address in the description box below. Now, before we start this video, just a quick check-in on my outfit for this video. Now, actually, these two are the first pieces that I have thrifted in recent times. I actually did so last week via Instagram. These two came from a vintage store in Utrecht called Roxy 79 Vintage. And to be honest, it's not ideal shopping vintage online because you can't really inspect the material correctly. But luckily, these two pieces turned out to be great. I am so happy with them. Also, these jeans are super cute because the cuffs have this tartan-like print. And yeah, I'm just very happy with both of them. So yeah, I will leave the link to the store's Instagram page in the description below for anyone who may be interested. Okay, so let's start with the books that I received from publishers. I'm actually trying to be a bit more selective just because I can't obviously read all of the books, and so receiving a lot of advanced reading copies becomes very stressful for me because of course I want to help out the author if the book turns out to be really good. So yeah, that's kind of like my reasoning behind not accepting all of the books. And so yeah, that review copy can also go to someone who might have time to review it properly. So yeah, the first book is When We Cease to Understand the World by Benjamin Labatut. This was gifted to me by Pushkin Press, and it was translated from the Spanish to the English by Adrian Nathan West. And I have actually already read this book, absolutely loved it, and so I will just read the back for you. Fritz Haber, Alexander Grothendieck, Werner Heisenberg, Erwin Schrödinger. These are among the luminaries into whose troubled lives we are thrust as they grapple with the most profound questions of existence. They have strokes of unparalleled genius. They alienate friends and lovers. They descend into isolated states of madness. Some of their discoveries revolutionize our world for the better. Others pave the way for chaos and unimaginable suffering. The lines are never clear. So this is a short story collection that mixes non-fiction with fiction in order to give us an intimate look into the lives of these scientists. And honestly, this is one of my favorite books of the year. This was actually also my first piece of Chilean literature, so that was exciting as well. It is so well written, and the lines between fiction and non-fiction blur so seamlessly. And for someone like me who is extremely interested in natural science and history, this was just right up my alley. Anyway, I will be doing a full review for this book when we get a bit closer to its publication date, which will be in September. Then Pushkin Press also sent me another book. It's In the House in the Dark of the Woods, and I'll just read the synopsis for you. Once upon a time, there was and there wasn't a woman who went to the woods. In this dark fairy tale, a young woman sets off to pick berries in the depths of the forest, but can't find her way home again. Or perhaps she has fled or abandoned her family, or perhaps she's been kidnapped and set loose to wander in the wilderness. Alone and possibly lost, she meets another woman who offers her help. Then everything changes. on a journey that will take her to the depths of the witch-haunted woods, through a deep well wet with the screams of men, and on a living ship made of human bones, our heroine may find that the evil she flees has been inside her all along. So Pushkin Press sent me this book because I will be hosting a horror-themed readathon in October. It's called Fortnight Frights. I already have a Twitter page for that, so if you're interested, you can give that a follow. Anyway, one of the main focuses of this readathon is really kind of like highlighting the diversity that exists in horror, because that is something that gets overlooked, in my opinion, far too much. And Pushkin Press just does an amazing job when it comes to publishing world literature, both contemporary and classic literature, as well as even young adult. So I'm looking forward to reading more of their books. Then Scribner sent me this graphic novel adaptation of The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald, and the text was adapted by Fred Fordham and it was illustrated by Aya Morton. I have actually never read The Great Gatsby. I have seen the movie adaptation with Leonardo DiCaprio and Spider-Man, which I thought was pretty good, and I also have read quite a chunk of the correspondence between Fitzgerald and his wife Zelda, which I really enjoyed and thought was very interesting. I believe it's called Dear Scott, Dearest Zelda, and it was published by Scribner last year, and they sent me a review copy at the time. But yeah, what do I have to say with regards to this graphic novel? I thought it was pretty good. The thing that I liked the most about this was the art style, because it had a very vintage feel to it, which I felt just matched the context of the story very well. Now, at this point, I'm not too sure if I would be willing to actually pick up The Great Gatsby and read the novel, because now I've already seen 2 of its adaptations, but a lot of people have urged me to still give it a go. In any case that I pick it up, I would prefer to have read one of his other works beforehand, just to, I guess, keep things fresh. So if you have any suggestions, I would be very happy to hear them. Then I also received The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones, and this is a book I have very much been looking forward to ever since I read The Mythic Dream, which is a mythological anthology that featured one of his short stories. So I will quickly recite the synopsis for you. Seamlessly blending classic horror and dramatic narrative with sharp social commentary, The Only Good Indians follows 4 American Indian men after a disturbing event from their youth puts them in a desperate struggle for their lives. Tracked by an entity bent on retribution, these childhood friends are helpless as the culture and traditions they left behind catch up to them in a violent, vengeful way. That sounds so good. I am so excited about this. I personally have never read a horror novel that centers around indigenous people, and I just think it's so interesting how this book deals with the identity of these men in relation to their heritage. I should note I am also very excited to read his novella that is coming out in September and will be published by Tor.com. It's called The Night of Mannequins. And like the title already is terrifying, because I think like mannequins are those type of things that are so like creepy. If you would see them at night or something, it always feels like they're about to like spring to life and attack you, or maybe that's just my imagination. But yes, I'm very excited for that novella. Then Canongate gifted me Black Sunday by Tola Rotimi Ibrahim, and so I said yes because Tola Rotimi, Yoruba my folk I have to support. So yeah, I got this one. I'll just read the back really quickly for you. So you have these twin sisters who are enjoying a comfortable life in Lagos in 1996. Then their mother loses her job due to the political strife, and their father gambles away their home, and so the siblings are thrust into the reluctant care of their traditional Yoruba grandmother. Inseparable while they had their parents to care for them, the twins' paths diverge once the household shatters, one embracing modernity as the years pass, the other consumed by religion. I think it's very interesting to read about how people who used to be very close, like eventually kind of like grow apart and lead like completely different lives. Also, the whole aspect of religion and modernity, westernization of Nigeria is something that interests me for obvious reasons. It's something that I think about quite a lot in terms of heritage and the impact colonization has had on my identity and my country as well. Also, growing up being influenced by two completely different and almost opposite cultures has been interesting in the sense that it has been hard to reconcile like the differences, the certain type of mindset and values, traditions, etc. But yes, I am going off on a tangent. Let's move on to the next book, which is not Black Sunday, but Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse, and this was also gifted to me by Saga Press. Now, Roanhorse is an Indigenous and African American author, and she has come on my radar over the past couple of years, but I've actually never read anything by her. One that I'm really interested in actually is the middle grade book that she wrote under the Rick Riordan imprint. I think it came out at the start of this year. Anyway, this is the first book in a trilogy that was inspired by the civilizations of the pre-Columbian Americas. So the synopsis states, in the holy city of Tova, the winter solstice is usually a time for celebration and renewal, but this year it coincides with a solar eclipse, a rare celestial event prescribed by the sun priest as an unbalancing of the world. Meanwhile, a ship launches from a distant city bound for Tova, set to arrive on the solstice. The captain of the ship, Shiala, a disgraced teak whose song can calm the waters around her as easily as it can warp a man's mind. Her ship carries one passenger. Described as harmless, the passenger, Serapio, is a young man, blind, scarred, and cloaked in destiny. As Shiala well knows, when a man is described as harmless, he usually ends up being a villain. I am very interested in this. However, it seems that the blind and scarred man is going to be the villain, and I am a bit afraid, hesitant about that with regards to kind of like how within literature often the people who are disabled get labelled like a villain. But of course I haven't read the book yet, and so I don't think it is fair to judge it by solely the synopsis. So I will let you know my thoughts once I have read it. Anyway, moving on to the books that I am currently reading. So usually I am reading about 10 books at the same time. I have tried everything within my power to change that and try to stick to one single book, but I always find that it really obstructs my reading pace. I read a lot slower when I only have one book that I'm focusing on. But yeah, generally there are about 5 to 6 books that I am seriously entertaining, so I will be talking about those now. So the first one is Olivia by Dorothy Strachey, and I have already spoken about this in a previous video. I think it was the diverse book haul video, and since then actually quite a lot of you have picked up the book and have really enjoyed it, so I'm very happy to hear that. Currently I am still at the introduction. I had actually set out to read this book about 2 days ago, but then I started to do research into the Bloomsbury group, which was kind of like this London-based group of intellectuals. So you had literary critics, writers such as Virginia Woolf, and painters, etc. And Strachey's brother was part of that group, and so she was also kind of like involved, but like on the parameters. So I found this whole like diagram, I'll put it here, that basically shows all the relationships, because apparently a lot of people in this group were rather involved, or should I say entangled with one another. So yeah, I did some research into that and kind of like forgot about reading the book, but yeah, I'm planning on doing so this week anyway. Then I am still reading The Souls of Black Folk by W.E.B. Du Bois, and I've said now for like a good month that I would read this book and review it on this channel, and I'm still going to do it. I haven't like given up on that. It has just taken me so much time to understand the book. It has definitely been one of the harder pieces of literature that I've read in recent times, and I think that is mainly due to the fact that I'm not American, and my knowledge concerning like the Civil War and slavery, etc. is not that great. So I have had to read up on a lot of that. I even went out and got this like analysis booklet, and yeah, this one has helped me a lot, like get through it. So now I have finished reading about 4 essays, the first 3 and the last one, and I have written my analysis on 2 at the moment, as well as Du Bois' biography, and I can tell you now it is going to be a long video, because there is just so much to unpack, and I wanted to make sure that it would be accessible to also people like me who aren't American and who don't have a lot of knowledge with regards to American history, specifically like Jim Crow laws and slavery and the abolition of slavery. So if I would be very honest, I think maybe in like a month or 2 that video will go up, but yeah, I think it is well worth the effort. Okay, so that's The Souls of Black Folk. Then I have this Dutch book, De Ondergang van de familie Boslowitz and Werther Nieland, written by Gerard Reven, or Gerard van het Reven. And I've spoken about this before, I believe, in a video. And yeah, this is taking me a really long time to finish. Like, I read the first novella in one go, but the second one is taking me a lot of time. So basically both of these stories are centered around a random boy in the Netherlands during the Second World War, and the first one was quite alright. The second one I'm struggling with, like finding the story interesting. There is some animal abuse in this as well, and I know this is all fictional and stuff like that, but I'm not really seeing like the point of it all. But maybe like once I finish it, I understand like why the boy did it and like what added value it might have had to the story. But as of yet, it's just kind of bland, to be honest. But nevertheless, if you're interested in trying this collection out, Pushkin Press translated it a couple of years back under the title Childhood. So yeah, I will leave a link in the description box, like I do with all of the books that I mentioned. Yes, okay, and then I have this book, Disability Visibility, First-Person Stories from the 21st Century, and this was edited by Alice Wong. And this is just basically a collection of stories written by people with disabilities, and it's absolutely great. So how I came about this book was that I was doing research into race and racism and reading up on that. And something that I quickly noticed was that if you are going to fight for equality, you have to fight for everyone's equality, because no one is truly free if not everyone is free. And so I have started to notice that ableism is something that we just don't talk about enough, and it's everywhere. And now kind of like that I'm waking up to that, and I'm really trying my best to fight against it. I am starting to notice all the ways in which we live in an ableist society. Even kind of this thought of, why do we not learn sign language in school? Because for instance, here in the Netherlands, you have to study Dutch and English. Those are both compulsory, and if you don't have dyslexia, you also have to learn a third language, so French, Spanish, or German. And if you are on track to go to the university and you're studying gymnasium, you have to also study ancient Greek and Latin. So why is it that all these languages are compulsory, yet we don't study sign language when there is a substantial part of our society that does? And so as a result, the only people who study sign language are usually just the people who are deaf themselves and their immediate family. And so that can create a lot of isolation. So that's kind of the things that I have been thinking about, why don't we study sign language? And just not only that, lots and lots of other things. And reading Disability Visibility has been very helpful. And this book wasn't written to educate people without disabilities on disability, but rather it's just stories about people's lives, people who have been continuously marginalized, and I think that's incredibly valuable. So I would definitely recommend it to you. I have only 100 pages left, so I'm very excited to review it on my channel in the future. And then the last book, I believe, and that is Sensuous Knowledge, A Black Feminist Approach for Everyone by Mina Salami. And I just first want to say that there is a difference between sensuous and sensual. I think we all know what sensual means, but sensuous actually relates to the senses. So eyes, ears, touch, stuff like that. Everything relating to the senses. So this is a book that is filled with feminist ideas that are not centered around Western feminism. Rather, it is grounded in African feminism, and it draws a lot from Yoruba Nigerian culture, seeing that Salami is half Finnish and half Nigerian. So I have been looking for both non-fiction work on feminism and racism that is not centered around mainly American culture, because when we talk about race, it is often within the scope of America. It's very American centered. The books that we read mainly on race are mostly centered around slavery in America, racism in America, the Jim Crow laws, etc. And so that has a huge consequence on our perception of racism all over the world. Like, for instance, here in Europe, there's very often this perspective of there's no racism here in Europe, it's all in America. And so racism starts to become this sort of American product, when in reality there's lots and lots of racism here in Europe as well. Another consequence is the erasure of work that people of color have done here in Europe in order to achieve equality, because not many people, at least within the English sphere, really talk about like what francophone people of color have done to achieve equality. And so I think we can sort of counter that view by actually discussing these type of books. And I found a couple of other ones which I'll be talking about in the future. So yeah, that's kind of like where I'm at the moment with this book. I've only read like a small chunk of this, but I'm hoping to be able to finish this in like maybe 2 or 3 weeks. We'll see. And now finally, the last book that I'm reading is The Street by Ann Petrie. And I'll just read the synopsis. New York City, 1940s. After leaving her unreliable husband, Lutie Johnson rents a crumbling tenement in Harlem, which she is determined to make into a home for her 8-year-old son, Bob. With hard work and resolve, Lutie believes she can create a life they can be proud of. She has faith in the American dream, but in her struggle to earn money and raise her son amid the violence, poverty, and racial dissonance of her surroundings, Lutie is soon trapped. She is a woman alone, too good looking to be decent, with predators at every turn. Yeah, so I am reading this together with my patrons, and I am having like the best time. Well, this story is quite depressing, but it is so well written, and it's just very lovely to be able to come together with people and read something together and share like our thoughts. I have gotten so much insight from like all the people who have shared their thoughts and feelings. So yeah, it's very exciting. If you would like to join my Diverse Classics book club, you can. It's over on Patreon. It starts on the lowest tier because I wanted it to be as accessible as possible for everyone. So next month we will be reading a classic from Argentina. It is The Aleph and Other Stories, and it's written by Jorge Luis Borges. So very, very excited about that. And yeah, those are all of the books that I'm kind of like really reading at the moment. Now, we don't have that many days left in July, but I still wanted to add one book to the roster, and I've spoken about this before. This is Near to the Wild Heart by Clarice Lispector, and I first of all just want to thank all of like my Brazilian viewers out there, because you are awesome. You are so kind. I have like received the kindest messages from all of you, and you all have been so supportive with regards to me reading Brazilian literature. And it's even the smallest thing, like for instance, some of you have thanked me for trying my best to pronounce names such as Jorge Amado correctly, and it's like, wow, you actually noticed that I've been practicing, and it's just so heartwarming. So yeah, I'm looking forward to reading more of your literature in the future. Anyway, I think that's everything that I had to say. As always, thank you so much for watching this video. If you like the content that I make, perhaps consider joining my Patreon. Like I said previously, I run a monthly diverse book club. It's loads of fun. Come join us. You can also just support me by donating a coffee. Either way, like I said already, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in another video.